What's up, my friends? How's it going today? It's Carpo again. I thought I would make a video to kind of top off one I just made, which I might not even upload, which was basically fuck society or my disgust with current society. Some of those I just make a video just to express my anger. If you could understand writing in a journal, for me, making a video is like writing in my journal. It may seem like a waste of time to make a video and erase it or never share it, but to me, it helps me process my thoughts. And I just made a video that I haven't uploaded yet, which I might. If people ask for it, I guess I could share it, but it's about basically my just frustration with the current issues in society and how dumb people are, how I just want to get away from society, get away from people, but you really can't. How I feel like, we're all kind of coddled and herded, or not coddled, but herded rather into these, I guess, camps of propaganda, which you might call tribalism, if you will. And after what's happened in the last couple of years, it's revealed a lot of weaknesses within our government and within ourselves as well. I think every single person who's gone through this, if you want to call it, whether it's a crisis, whatever you think about COVID, I think we've all suffered some mental trauma from all of this, whether it be from the lockdowns, losing a loved one, whatever it might be. But at this point, I'm kind of like over it, and I think most people are. And what I mean by being over it is I'm not going to sit and worry about what might happen. As far as getting sick or dying, I feel like our government and our officials have mishandled this crisis so poorly, so much, that there's no way to come out of this even understanding what's going on. So that's just the COVID crisis. Then we have the housing crisis. We have people unable to afford a home for their family. We have people who are working, both parents working, unable to afford a single one-bedroom, house. There's a huge problem going on. The banks are basically being bailed out just like the corporations, and we're on the precipice of a major collapse of everything if we're not careful. And what I mean by that is that so much of us trust in, quote, the system. And the system doesn't exist. I want people to understand where I'm coming from here. The system is a fabrication, a delusion, an illusion that we all carry within our minds. That there's a bunch of people in charge who know what's going on and they're making things work out for us. But as we see, things aren't working out. They're not working out very well. In fact, the disparity in wealth has become so much worse. I'm going to pause this until these fucking cops or ambulances or whatever have passed. Finally. So basically I live in the suburbs, and every time I make a video or come outside there's sirens, and I live near a fire station, but usually the sirens come from elsewhere. And I've been living here for about 17 years, and I'm disgusted with it. I'm being honest here, I cannot stand coming home to this house anymore. And it sucks because it's the home that we bought, that we've lived in for 17 years. But my wife and I have been looking for land elsewhere for the last year. And recently looking in Kentucky. And on a side note, if any of you out there know anybody with land or have land, or even better, just know of a spot where there's good land for sale that maybe isn't really in the mainstream, like I said, Kentucky may sound like a weird place for a hippie from the Pacific Northwest to go move to. And a lot of people would be like, oh, there's too many conservatives there. I'm not basing where I want to live on the politics or the majority of conservatives. I don't give a shit about that. And I'll tell you why. Because I'm not a liberal. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a conservative. I'm not religious or non-religious. I'm just a human fucking being who has my own opinions about life. And other people will draw conclusions based on that. They will tell me what I am. They will tell me who I am. I've had people say, you either believe this or you don't. And I say, that's not true. I just don't care. I'm not going to think it through, because to believe something or not believe it, you have to research it. Which brings me to my point. When I was getting ready to make this video, I looked at my comments, and I had a comment on a video which was called Question Authority. It was from 6.5 years ago. And it was just me sitting out in front of my house here talking about questioning authority and basically saying the same things, that you don't have to put up with other people's bullshit. And you should always wonder and question when somebody's telling you something is true. For example, the video I made yesterday was about, it was probably a more controversial title, which was ADHD is not real. And I know that pissed a lot of people off, but the reason I made it that way was to make an impact and a point. I want you to click on it, I want you to look at it, and I want you to refute what this doctor says, what this Harvard professor, who was considered the 22nd best eminent psychologist in history, even above Sigmund Freud, right? So it made me wonder, this guy's making this claim and he's the expert, but we believe all these other experts who tend to agree with one another. The authority tells us that if you feed your kids drugs, like Ritalin, because they're overactive and hyperactive, it'll calm them down. It might, but what are the long-term consequences from that? Have we really researched how kids react when they take Ritalin their whole childhood compared to kids who don't? No, of course not. As soon as there's money involved, everything goes to shit. And this is why I don't trust authority, why I've always questioned authority. It's been like my mantra since I was a teenager. I just was never a person who could put up with people telling me what to do. But here's the thing. I'm not the kind of guy who doesn't think that a society matters or doesn't think that other people's opinions matter. On the contrary, I highly value and respect my elders and the opinions of others. But if they're conveyed in a manner that seems confrontational or wrong, then I'll call it out. So for example, the old saying, do as I say, not as I do, was so well known because every parent seems to do that. Don't smoke, even though I smoke. Don't do drugs, even though I do drugs. Don't do what I do. But the kids are going to do what they're going to do. Whether you tell them to do something or not to do something, they will do whatever they do. And it's not going to change by what you say. Because they, as kids, naturally are questioning authority. That's what we do. And therefore, we should celebrate that. My wife and I were talking about our son, who is 26 now. And she told me once that she wished he would have snuck out a few times. And I think he did. But the point was that I recall this conversation about, I hope my kids rebel because I don't want them to follow blindly the bullshit. And I mentioned this in the previous video, and I really don't want to bring it up right now. But it's important, and I hope it doesn't get me censored by YouTube. But my kids, I have not only a 26-year-old, but also a 9 and 12-year-old. Well, he'll be 9 in like 4 days. My 8-year-old turns 9 on September 29th. And those are big milestones for a kid like that, right? So my son's first year of middle school, my 12-year-old, and he wore a suit to school yesterday. It was really funny. He wanted to borrow my suit to wear to school. And I said, go for it, dude. And it's just like, I love the independence and the individuality of kids. And I feel like I can't imagine my kid going to a school where he's forced to wear a uniform he doesn't want to wear. But there's something deeper going on, and this is the part I didn't want to mention, which was that, every day when my kids get out of school, they come running out wearing a mask. And I have no problem with masks for adults or those compromised in tight quarters or indoors. But I'm starting to have a major issue with people wearing masks outdoors. I feel like I got a funny look walking up to Trader Joe's without a mask on a sunny day, not near anybody. And probably I wasn't getting any looks, but it's just not being able to see the faces of the teachers for the kids is very detrimental to learning, in my opinion. And I'm questioning the authority on this because I don't believe that kids are a vector for spread, because they've been shown to not have any problems with getting sick really in this virus. Number two, I'm trying to not go too much into detail here, but I looked at the numbers, and I think 400 kids have died from COVID since this started. 400 in the U.S. It's an infantile amount. And out of those 400, 90% had a comorbidity or were obese. And the obesity issue isn't talked about. A majority of the people who are at risk for COVID have either pre-existing conditions or are old or have an obesity problem. And in this country, we have an obesity epidemic. We're not doing anything about people taking their kids to McDonald's every day, but we definitely don't have a problem with making kids wear masks all day long, even when they're outside. And there was one school that forced their kids to wear a mask while they were eating. Like, even when you take a bite, you have to close it while you're actively chewing or talking. Like, how fucking absurd. What happened? Why are people going along with this? I watched a 2-year-old get kicked off an airplane. I'm sure a lot of people saw that. Actually, I didn't even watch the video on that one. I just saw a clip about it. But I did watch a video of a 2-year-old or a 1.5-year-old, 2-year-old in preschool, where the preschool was trying to pull his mask up, and he was crying and crying. He didn't want to wear it. And by the way, the kid on the plane was asthmatic, I guess. And we have taken things to such a tribal level that we're willing to fight over who the fuck wears a mask and who doesn't. And this goes for both you conservatives and you liberal douchebags. I'm talking to both of you, if you're listening. Because, a lot of my viewers are pretty balanced, and I know that I attract an audience that tends to be balanced, because the conservatives hear me talk like a liberal hippie, and they don't want to hear me anymore, and they leave. And the extreme Democrats, or the 8% of the progressive liberals, 8% is all it is in this country. They might hear me say one thing where I don't support woke culture, and all of a sudden they just go off the handle about how I'm a racist or something. I honestly just did a podcast about woke culture. I haven't uploaded it yet. It's a long one. It's about a half an hour long, and it's on my Patreon page. The link to the video is on my Patreon page, and it's only for patrons. There are some videos that I have to do just for patrons because they're by request, and it allows me to get people interested in Patreon. So if you want to fund me through Patreon, not only do I have that video, but I also have my psychedelic videos, and my Kratom videos are all linked up there, but they're not on YouTube. So that's just a side note. And it's a matter of thinking for yourself and saying fuck society, but at the same time accepting society for what it is. You are a member of it. You have to partake and be a member of your society. It's very strange to be a human, because we don't know where we come from, where we're going, or what our purpose is. And don't give me that bullshit about how God put us here to do this or that. No religion has this right. The only closest ideas that I've come to are like Buddhism, or rather Zen Buddhism, which laughs at everything and makes a mockery. Because if you can't laugh at it, you miss the whole point. That's the way I feel. But that's just me. Everything that I view, whether the things I see right now, the things I hear, they're all being conveyed through these various organs in my ears, my nose, my eyes, and then they're being sent as signals to the brain. And it's decoding it the way it wants to. I see my dog in the background, I see the trees, the blue sky, but I'm noticing the camera right now, then my table saw, then some clothes. It's not as simple as we all see things the same way. And this is why, when I say question authority in this video, I want to be more specific. I want to say that we want to trust our officials, our scientists, our top epidemiologists about what's going on in the world, but we can't anymore because they've lied to us. And I've met some people who are on the, let's say, the left side, who I cannot understand how they can still trust these guys, these quote officials like Anthony F. right? I don't even want to mention names, because once you do, you get blocked and blacklisted on YouTube. And so I'm just going to say the top epidemiologist in this country I trusted for 6 months. Then I found out the truth and I changed my opinion. And over the last 6 months, I've changed my opinion on a lot of things, including the mask issue. And it's not because I don't think they work. It's not because I think we're breathing our own carbon dioxide. That's complete bullshit. For the most part, it's a freedom choice. And I saw an article the other day that said, should we value liberty over safety? And my first answer was, fuck yes, we should. Fuck yes, we should. That's what this country was founded on. And that's my, I guess you might call it a conservative or right-wing side, call it whatever you want. But yeah, this country was founded on fucking freedom, not being coerced into taking a shot that you don't want. And I know that I'm one of the last holdouts, you know. Probably among my group and the people I know, I'm like among like 2 people who haven't had. And it's not because I'm a Trump supporter, which I've been accused of. It's not because I'm a conservative. It's not because I believe Fox News or conservative media, because I don't watch it. If I do, it's just for research. In fact, I watched Megyn Kelly today. Yeah, Megyn Kelly, that Megyn Kelly. And I've watched a couple Fox clips, and even Tucker Carlson, a guy I totally hate. I despise the man. I think he's a total rabble-rouser, troublemaker, who has no interest in actual understanding, just wants to get ratings, like a lot of these guys, and it's disgusting. But what do you do about it? You can't do anything. You just live with it. They're on TV, they're making the money, they're going to continue spreading this shit. The point being that I listen to them to hear some of the stories that the left liberal media will not cover. And I know this went from being an authority issue to being a media issue. But this is extremely important, because the media claims to be the fucking authority on knowledge. And that's the whole point. If you watch CNN for your information, you're a fucking moron. I mean, okay, let me back up. That sounds really rude and crude. If you watch CNN and think that's the only information you need, you're a fucking moron. If you watch Fox News or Breitbart News, or especially Breitbart, I mean, that is garbage. I actually click on the website at least once a month to see what the top, stories are. And usually I just get a bunch of pop-down ads for dick pills and survival kits, just like when I go to Alex Jones. This is the marketing campaign of people who they call, it's basically rage bait, okay? The whole thing is to get you angry. If you get your info from One American News Network, Breitbart, or, any Alex Jones, or you go to the Young Turks or some of these left-wing sites, I don't even know who's left-wing anymore, but CNN, any of them, you're going to get biased information, and you're going to get bullshit that just wants to get people angry. And if you don't get that, then you really need to understand this major fucking point, that it's intended to get you inflamed and angry. You hear statistics that piss you off and freak you out. Oh my God, the crime rate has doubled and the murder rate has doubled. Yeah, that's bad. But are you in danger as an individual? And I get sucked into it too. I get it. I understand. At the beginning of the COVID thing, none of us knew anything. I know a lot of the people who will tell me, oh, well, I told you about the masks, and I already told you about the vaccines at the beginning. People who just want to be right, or say, I knew what was coming. I felt this coming too, but the point was, you can't derive a conclusion about the danger of something until you've actually faced it. So, in other words, before COVID had even arrived in the US, there were already conspiracy websites spreading all this bullshit about how it's a fake virus and it's not real and it's for this and that and it's not that dangerous. I still believe it's dangerous to a lot of people, but there's a huge issue that's being ignored. A lot of people who get sick from COVID and die, who are in the, younger people, are extremely overweight. And people won't talk about that. It's untouchable. A lot of other people have pre-existing conditions. And America is a fat nation. We don't complain about people who go to McDonald's, like I said, with their kids every day, but we definitely want to complain when somebody doesn't get a vaccine and say they shouldn't get service or treatment. A guy like Don Lemon did a clip on CNN that Russell Brand shared, And it was absurd. He was basically saying disown and disregard and marginalize all the people who didn't get the shot because they're somehow bad people, even though there are people who just can't for other medical reasons. There is a lack of comprehension in the media world, and they are considered the authority. But let us move to the government. What is their authority? They're hired to work for us. In other words, we hire certain people to make decisions, but for the most part, we hire people to make our decisions into law and to enforce these laws. The problem is that the police force itself, which is the final part of my authority here, is perhaps one of the most corrupt institutions in the nation. Local police, federal police, they want to support their own institutions. So when you can do no-knock warrants, or when you can do raids on people and confiscate all their money, or pull them over and take all their money without returning it and just claim it was being used for drugs without any recourse for the people, it's basically search and seizure and illegal seizure. We live in a nation where the cops can seize anything they want from you and just say it was drug money. And I know that this may not apply to a lot of people. You may not think it does. But I would urge you to look into the cases of people who were pulled over going to for example, going through Tennessee. Some of these states like Georgia and Tennessee, they would have these sting operations for drugs, but they weren't pulling over people coming from Mexico or from the south. They would go on the other side for those going south. And there was a huge stink about this whole thing, but they were pulling over people going back because they had the money. And when the cops could confiscate the money, they could actually keep it for their force. And look, in the 80s, when I was growing up, if you go back and watch some of the riots in the 80s, the cops came out there in the street, even in New York, with just their shirts on. Short sleeve shirts, blue shirts, a badge, pants, maybe a helmet if they were on a horse. But that was it. That didn't look threatening to people. Now they're coming out there in full-on fucking military garb, flak jackets, helmets, riot gear, the full shebang, driving around in military tanks. It's absurd, and the people have just gone along with it because they are passive sheep. I've always been a rebel, but I'm not the kind of rebel who just is without a cause or thinks that I know better than others. I know that there are certain things I have to learn. There's an old quote I want to say here. They said, I heard it once and it stuck with me. It said, if you're under 20 and not a liberal, you have no heart. And if you're over 40 and not conservative, you got no brain. And look, I don't know if that's how it was worded. I think it was more mild than that. But basically saying, if you don't lean liberal when you're young, you're heartless. And if you don't lean conservative as you get older, gradually, doesn't mean you have to jump to everybody else's side. There's no such thing as the red pill. That's what I'm getting at. Don't buy into that bullshit about, I've been disenfranchised by the liberals, so I'm just going to go full blown on the right. It doesn't work that way. You've got to keep a balanced view. And the reason people don't is because it's painful, it's lonely, people don't want to listen to you if you don't share all of their opinions. It's just like when you talk on a conspiracy site or something and you agree with most of the points of a theory, and then you're like, but I don't agree with this, and they're like, you're a complete moron. You've got to follow it all or none. It's just like every religion. If you go into a church and you tell your pastor, hey man, I think this Bible verse may be translated this way instead, they're going to laugh at you and they're going to throw you out at the very least. And this is well known. People don't want to change the way they think. They don't want to change what they think is right. But meanwhile, society itself is slowly creeping in and changing everything behind the scenes. And people don't even realize how much it's changed because new generations come up and they are willing to accept authoritarianism without question. And let me just leave you on a final note. This is why on June 2nd, 2020, when I went down to Portland to film the BLM protests, they were peaceful, they were kind. There was a small faction of people who were screaming obscenities at the cops, but they weren't the majority. Most people were just standing their ground. The cops straight up started lobbing tear gas in I was filming the whole thing. I've got so much footage, it's ridiculous. I never really uploaded any of it, just one video that I took, but I have a lot of footage of that. And the cops corralled us in, gassed us, and were shooting rubber bullets at people. It was insane, insane. And the point I want to make here is that there are so many people out there who I've seen who are claimed to be patriots and Americans who laugh at people getting tackled or beat up or arrested or harassed while they're protesting. And I want to say to any of you out there who may be right-leaning and maybe call yourself a patriot, who may think that everybody out there deserves what they get when they get gassed or shot at. My son is 26 years old. He's a kind soul. He's always done nice things for people. He's not a political person. He went down there with me, and I was filming. He wanted to make his mark and see what was going on. We attended the protest, and when it got nasty, we took off. They said disperse, so we dispersed. We left. We were walking 5 blocks away. 2 vans full of cops pull up, and all the cops jump off the side. These are vans with like cops on the side hanging on to these racks, like a dozen of them. The cars just skid to a stop. They all jump off and they run and tackle my son, just slam him to the ground. And you know what they said to him? They said, "You little piece of shit, you threw a bottle at my guys." And he said, "No, I didn't." And I know he didn't because I was with him and I have all the footage. And they said, "You threw a bottle at my guys." They said, and as they were driving back, they said, "You know what? We kill white boys too." That's what they said to him. And, you know, I get it. Cops get emotional. Shit happens. But we kill white boys too? That says all you need to hear from Portland cops. And it was an absurd time. The charges were dropped on a lot of people. And I guess I'm making this point because Anthony No, if you're not familiar with him, is some right-wing commentator who got hit with the cement milkshake from some Antifa fuckers. There's this little childish battle between Antifa and the, quote, Proud Boys. And they just want to fight. That's fine. Let them get their tough guys out. You know, it's like letting the kids go play at the park, right? That's how I feel about it. These are some childish fuckers because they are such a small amount of people. Antifa is nothing. And Proud Boys are nothing. They're small groups. They don't have an impact on society, but the media picks up on it and shows these big battles where a couple people got beat up, one guy got shot, whatever. Shit happens. But they're looking for a fight, both of them, both teams, both groups. And they want to assume that the other person's the enemy. But both of them fail to realize that the government, their own federal government, is the biggest problem we have. So when you want to call in the cops to solve your problems, or when you want to start arresting people or prosecuting people for protesting, that's a slippery fucking slope. The reason why all these charges were dropped on most of the Portland rioters was because the claims were bullshit. The only people who deserve to get punished are those who were lighting fires in buildings and breaking windows in the fucking historical center, and there were a bunch of them. And they were well-known agitators. Some of them were from other groups that were just looking to... it's basically this. You don't know who the fuck's doing anything anymore. It's all fake. It's all bullshit. It's garbage. You think we watch the media and we know what's going on? We don't. We listen to the politicians rant and rave. People celebrating guys like Trump or guys like Biden. How could anybody celebrate either one of them? But we do. And we don't look to ourselves for the truth. So that's my long-ass rant about authoritarianism. And it's not that I think we can solve it, because at this point I've realized something that I didn't realize before. People want to be controlled. They want to be told what to do. I think it's just something you have to learn with age. We have these novel ideas as kids that we can truth the world and tell everybody the truth of what's going on and read 1984 and solve all our problems. No. People want to be controlled. It's really pathetic. And when I see people walking around with 2 masks outside at the park, I'm like, are you retarded? I mean, I'm not just talking like 1 in 100 people who might have a condition, but like everybody. because everybody looks to everybody else to see what they should do. And when I walk up to pick up my kids at school, I'm the only one there not wearing a mask, and I feel like the weirdo. I'm the fucking pariah. And I'm like, I'm out here on a sunny day. I'm 50 feet from anyone. Why would it matter? But it taught me that we've been programmed for so long that we're willing to just do what we're told without question, even if it's uncomfortable, even when it's not solving any problems. But I'm not going to get into the whole COVID thing because that's a whole other discussion. So thank you for listening, and hopefully I didn't go off the rails too much, but I intend to go off the rails a lot more in the future because the shit's only getting worse, and it's starting to piss me off when I honestly think about it. I mentioned I want to move to Kentucky or somewhere else where I can get some land, get away from all this shit, but you can never really escape it as long as you're looking at your fucking phone or your computer. So we got to be smarter than that. Be well. Peace out. Talk to you next time. Thanks to my patrons. As I said, if you want to see some extra content or the psychedelics or the other controversial content, you'll have to become a patron. Peace out.